wanted to use
Really sure.
Let me just say this: when we did the RFRA, the religious law that we're all talking about today, I remember going to Senator Kennedy and saying, "You're going to be on this with me," and he said, "Oh no, I'm not." But when he got into it, he came on and became an enthusiastic supporter. So did President Clinton. So did a whole raft of others. In fact, it passed the Senate 97-3. And the reason they got so excited about it is because they realized how important First Amendment rights and privileges are, and that religion basically is part of not only the Religious Freedom Restoration Act, but the First Amendment. It's the first protections and civil liberties that literally are mentioned in the First Amendment. Now, our gathering here this morning is an example of the phrase at the entrance of the National Archives: "Eternal vigilance is the price of liberty." Religious liberty is central to America's past, but it will not be central to our future unless we constantly defend it. And make no mistake, religious liberty is under attack today. Later today, the Senate will vote whether to consider a bill, 2578, that would, for the first time in the history of this country, actually restrict protection for religious liberty of all Americans. The groups with me today represent different faiths. Some come from different perspectives and have different views on public policy issues. But we are united in one principle: that religious liberty is a fundamental right that belongs to all Americans, and it simply must be defended. Some of these very groups, and even some of their individual leaders, joined with me more than 20 years ago to enact the Religious Freedom Restoration Act. That law made it very difficult for the government to interfere with the free exercise of religion, allowing it to do so only for a compelling reason, and then only in the least restrictive way. RFRA required that every future law or regulation must comply with that reasonable but tough standard. 2 weeks ago, the Supreme Court held that the Religious Freedom Restoration Act means what it says, that it applies to all situations in which the free exercise of religion is substantially burdened. The court concluded that a federal mandate requiring employers to provide insurance coverage for all forms of birth control or they're either going to have to provide insurance for all forms of birth control or pay massive fines, that did not adequately accommodate the beliefs of religious employers. Congress should have taken religious liberty more seriously when it drafted the Affordable Care Act, the so-called Affordable Care Act, which is anything but affordable. The Department of Health and Human Services should have taken religious liberty more seriously when it issued this mandate. It did not do so, but it can do so now. Instead of making the birth control mandate consistent with the Religious Freedom Restoration Act, however, this bill would prohibit considering RFRA, or the Religious Freedom Restoration Act, at all. It's that simple and that irritating. In fact, this bill prohibits considering RFRA's protection for religious liberty regarding insurance coverage for any health care or item under any federal statute or regulation. Now, I teamed up with Senator Ted Kennedy to introduce RFRA more than 20 years ago, even though we had different views on many policy issues. And as you all know, Kennedy and I were very good friends, and we passed a lot of legislation that is today helping people in this country. The Senate voted 97-3 to pass RFRA, and these groups joined me in defending it today for one critical reason. We believe that public policy issues can be addressed in a way that upholds rather than ignores religious liberty. We believe that religious liberty is not the problem, but must be part of the solution. I'm grateful to have these folks who are with us today to talk about how important this issue really is. And think about it. Hobby Lobby did provide coverage for their employees with regard to contraceptives. What they objected to were 4 abortifacients that were offensive to their religious beliefs. And the court agreed with them. And the court agreed with them in a very limited way. It's amazing to me that the Democrats want to make a public issue of this and do it for political purposes, taking on one of the most important principles in American life, and that is religious liberty. So I'm pleased to have all these folks with us here today to talk about this and to help people to understand in this country that this is not some itty-bitty little problem. This is a major, major constitutional problem that the Democrats, in order to make political hay, they think, and I don't think it will, are ignoring.